Welcome to Declares Delight for Life. It's about life, where we share our experience, strength, and hope to help others so they have a better understanding. Thank you. I'd like to welcome Evan Herrman on my podcast of Declares Delight for Life. I'm going to let him introduce himself, and if you would, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, my name's Evan Herrman. I am a Tulsa real estate broker / agent, as well as a podcast host of the Whole Person podcast. As a young child, I had a lot of favor with my teachers because I was extremely cooperative. And so that always made me a little awkward, I guess, as a young kid. But that really turned into a lot of bullying. And over the years, the bullying only increased, and I saw very little value in myself. I had a lot of self-doubt, a lot of, self-worth issues that, by the time I turned teenage years, became suicidal and worked through that all the way up into, healing took place and going off to college. When I was in school, by the way, I had some learning disabilities that made it very difficult for me to understand what I was reading. It was a reading comprehension issue as well as a reading issue. I didn't start reading until 6th grade. So even that made me stand out a little bit more because I always struggled academically. And what ended up happening is I had a vision problem that was undiagnosed until I was in 6th grade. So I started learning how to read in 6th grade. When I went to college, which, I was 18 at the time, I graduated high school with a 7th grade reading level. So imagine inability to throw a 7th grader who's super socially adept, but academically not, into a college environment. And I graduated in 4 years. I had to overcome a lot of challenges and struggles through that. And I did. Starting in 2008, I've lost around one close loved one in my life every single year since 2008, knocking on wood.
I'm sharing, for the audience, would you feel imputed to be able to share who those people you lost and how you felt like you lost them?
Yeah, absolutely. Starting in 2008, the first person that I lost was my grandfather, and he was older, and it was coming, but I was in his room when he passed away. So I saw him go, and it was a very moving, beautiful thing. And then the following year, I lost a young mentor of mine. He was 28 to 29 at the time. I was, 21, 20-ish maybe. And he died from a brain aneurysm, and he died on the day I was going to ask him to be a best man in my wedding. And that was extremely, extremely difficult.
Definitely hard.
Yeah. And then the following year, I lost another mentor of mine who fell off of a mountain, legitimately fell off a mountain, not like rolled and tumbled down a hill, but splat kind of mountain. And so that was extremely tragic. I lost 2 of my best friends in the same plane crash. There was a group of 5 students flying somewhere. One was my roommate in college, and one was a man in my wedding. And so I lost 2 of my best friends in that. I lost other friends that lived on my floor while I was at college. I've lost a daughter. I've lost neighbors and friends. And the list goes on. It just, grief hurts. And go ahead.
I'm sorry. How did you deal with those grief issues from person to person? Did you stuff them? Did you just say it was what it was? Can you kind of expound on that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, the majority, all of them were believers in Jesus Christ. So in our belief system, people who believe in Jesus Christ go to heaven. So there was that help towards that. The other thing, though, what it did do is it made me fearful of death. And yes, I still grieve even to this day when I scroll across my phone and I see their name in my phone and my phone number contacts, and I've never taken them out. It makes me think and it reminds me of them. And in terms of how I dealt with that, a lot of crying, a lot of prayer, the hurt, the pain, that never goes away. But I've learned how to live with them in a good memory, and learning that, what I lost was the ability to communicate to them, because I wasn't around them all the time. So it's not like, there's this specific amount of time that I lost, but I lost the ability to communicate, to have relationship, to grow, to see their futures play out. The one that was extremely difficult was my daughter. We had a premature stillborn, and when she was born, we were able to have her body with us for about 7.5 hours in the delivery room. And the doctors came in around 7:30, the nurse came in, and I was holding her, and they asked for her body. I was holding her, so I'm the one that had to give her body up. Losing her was hard, but having to hand her body over to the nurse, never to see her, never to hold her again, the pain, the desperation, the anxiety, it felt like life itself was being sucked right out of me. And fast forward a few hours, it's about 9:30 at night, and I'm laying on the couch, and I say, God, where's your love in all this? Because I don't see it. My wife is asleep. This is our first child. They really drugged my wife up during the process because the baby was already gone. And so they didn't want her to feel anything. And in so doing that, they really, she wasn't awake a lot after the fact. And so I spent a lot of time alone. And so as I'm laying there on the couch, I say, God, where's your love in all this? Because I don't see it. And I desperately need to see your love. And he gave me a flashback to that moment of handing my daughter over to the nurse. And that pain, that desperation, that anxiety, life itself being sucked right out of me is what it felt like. And I said, God, why was this what you showed me when I asked to see your love? And he said, Evan, because that's exactly how I feel. Anytime any of my children live a life without ever knowing my love. And at that moment, I became closer and like God than I've ever been able to relate to him before, because I had an understanding of the brokenness of God's heart that he has for his creation, that lives a life without ever knowing his love, because my daughter would never get to experience the outpouring of my love on her. But a lot of people choose to reject or be ignorant of the love of God. And then I said, God, why did you allow us to get pregnant if this was going to happen? Why couldn't we have avoided this pain, this hurt, this suffering? And he said, her eternal plan and her eternal purpose far outweighs any hurt, pain, or suffering that you will go through. And as this hurt, broken father is like, wow, she must be doing an amazing job in heaven or something. So what is that job? And it's one of those slap your forehead moments that you already knew the answer to.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, her eternal plan and purpose is for her to dwell with me and me to dwell with her. That is exactly why I still created human beings, knowing they would sin and knowing I'd have to send my son Jesus to the cross, because the short-term pain and suffering and loss of relationship that I have with my son Jesus is nothing compared to the loss of relationship that I would have with my creation, us as his sons and daughters as well. And it just made salvation so much more real. It made his love so much more real. And that really helped me in my process of dealing with grief.
If I could
Still,
chime in here just for a
yeah.
second, I can be empathetic to your situation with your daughter. I was like in a 6 month of a pregnancy myself and lost the child. It was viable, but I actually lost the child and she died in. Um, it was very heartbreaking. I can understand where you're coming from. I didn't have it born, but you can understand where I was coming from. And it's the only child I've been ever able to have. And I guess I could have some understanding of your pain of what you've gone through as far as that point is. And I just thought I'd like to say to you that I'm very empathetic with your situation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So shortly after losing our daughter came Mother's Day and then Father's Day, and I was working for a hardware store, and I asked off well in advance so that I could have Mother's Day and Father's Day off because this was our first child and we lost her, and I didn't get it off, and they knew the reasoning. I had bad management. They didn't care, and I didn't get it off, but I was a wreck on both of those days. I wasn't much help to them. And I wasn't able to be there for my wife, and my wife wasn't able to be there for me. And so I chose at that moment that I wanted to be able to control my own schedule. I wanted freedom and independence. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what that meant. But I knew I never wanted to be in a position where my family needed me and I couldn't be there. And so that led me on a journey towards entrepreneurship. I became a real estate agent shortly after that. And I've been selling real estate for over 8 years and recently got my broker associate license. And, we're taught that our business grows to the extent that we do. And so personally, I've gone on a journey of personal growth, wholeness, and self-development, biblically speaking, as well. And through this process, I had a lot of baggage that I didn't know I had. I had a victim mentality. I had to overcome that. I had to learn how to take extreme ownership of my situation and my choices. I chose to work for the hardware store. I chose the bad bosses that I've had. I chose the decisions that led to the things that I didn't like happening in my life. So even though some things might have been done to me wrongfully, I was also the one that put myself in that situation. So it wasn't until I learned how to take extreme ownership of my life that I start making strides to change it. And so as I started making strides to change it and learning more and more about business and becoming better at sales and communication, then other opportunities started opening up to me. Relationships started opening up to me, friendships to help me grow, to grow my business, and to just grow my skills and my just my overall worth as an asset to the community that I live in. And I'll fast forward to 2019, which was one of the most painful years other than losing my daughter that I've ever experienced. We had 8 financial things happen to us, my wife and I. We had 4 emergency visits that year. And the emergency visits consisted of, we thought my son had appendicitis. Turns out it was very bad gas lock. And it wasn't appendicitis. So thank God that he was good, but that still created an ER bill. I actually ended up later that year. Well, hold on. I'll get to that next. I injured my knee. I tore the ligament that holds my kneecap to my femur, my MPFL. So I needed surgery. My wife was in a car wreck. That car, we didn't have that for about a month and a half. And then 2 days after that, the only other vehicle that we had broke down for good. So we had no vehicle. And we also lost a pregnancy during that time. My wife went to the ER. They said, you'll be able to pass the baby naturally. That wasn't the case. She had to go back to the ER the next day. And then later, a few months later, I saw this orphan from Uganda who had a severely infected foot. And I just felt like I was supposed to give specifically $800 to help her have surgery. And 800 was everything I had, everything we had. I reached out to that pastor who's taking care of that child, and they told me that I said, "What's the situation?" They said, "We're trying to raise money for her surgery, and they've raised half of it, but they still need the other 50%." And I said, "Well, how much is the other 50%?" It was $800. So I sent that money, and she died on the operating table. And then fast forward to November of 2019, I have an emergency appendectomy where I had my appendix out, and that was another ER bill. I was just getting over one injury after another. Financially, we weren't even getting by. My in-laws were buying us groceries, and things were tight. But God spoke a word to me, and I followed and obeyed it. And because of that, it opened up other doors of opportunities for financial freedom and the ability to do debt snowball. And we paid one debt off and took that money and combined it to pay another debt off and another and another and another. And then we were able to buy 2 vehicles debt free in cash. And then we were financially prepared and set up. And then all of a sudden, COVID happens. But God had prepared us the year before, towards the end of it. And 2020 ended up being a very good year for my family, believe it or not. One of the best years we've ever had. And I don't say that spitefully, because it's been the worst year a lot of people have ever had. Through all that, I learned to believe that there is a consistent light at the end of the tunnel, and to be led by peace and discernment with God so that I can make the best and most wisest decisions, and not to blame God for my circumstances or situations, not to get bitter or angry, but to be led by his peace and to be led by his presence in order how to make wise decisions that helps get my family out of those issues. And because of it today, my wife got a promotion at work, and then I changed companies and got a 30% increase in what I made as well. And so in a period of just a few months, our whole lives changed upside down financially because of being able to be led by the Spirit of God.
I definitely can agree with you on those points, because I've traveled the past year of 3 car wrecks, surgery, back surgery, COVID, back infections. And now coming out of all that, I can understand where you're at as far as that's concerned. And then coming out of it, I'm coming out of it financially, of a foreclosure on my home and getting that paid, and just all sorts of things. And God definitely provides for those who help provide for others. And I thought that was wonderful how you tried to provide for that child in Uganda, with the foot infection, because it's in a lot of countries it's either pay or play. And folks who see things like that, God blesses. And it's to me a beautiful thing to see that. Our stories seem to have some parallels as far as time frames, and it's interesting how things come together. And sometimes you don't know where things are going, but the only thing you have is where God leads you, and you follow his lead. And looking at where your business is now, if you could explain it to the audience, what you do for a business, and how that's going for you, and maybe expound on ways that they could maybe help themselves.
Yeah. So with my business in real estate, it's really dependent on what I make happen, in the context that through the people and relationships that I build highly depend on the amount of referrals I get within real estate to help people buy or sell a home. or the amount of energy I put into making cold calls for sell by owners, expired listings, or expired or dropped listings. So there's a lot of things that I have to do in order to make my business function and work. And so the biggest thing that we can do wherever we're at is show up, be consistent in what we do and do it well, and make ourselves valuable and an asset. And when we do that, other people see it and they're attracted to it. And so when we're able to do that consistently, then as a natural default, business and life, things start coming your way. You start attracting things. And so if you're working for someone at this point, one of the best things that you can do is just make yourself invaluable to where it would be painful to get rid of you. And then also start a side hustle. Find something that you enjoy doing on the side that you can do and make a little money at it. I used to flip furniture, and I made good profit doing that. There's a lot of side hustles that I've had over my life to help when things got slow. And even when I was in real estate during slow seasons, I wasn't prideful enough to be like, oh no, I can only do real estate. No, I Ubered, I delivered pizza. I was a security guard. I mean, there's other jobs and things that I had to do just when I was still new or midway through real estate because I wasn't bringing enough money in real estate. And God forbid if I had to do that again, but I would. I don't want to, but I will because got to bring money home. Got to make sure the family's taken care of. And so we should never be too hoity-toity or egotistical not to do the small things. Because I got to tell you what, people see you picking up the trash. People see you going the extra mile. The worst thing that you can ever say to someone is, that's not my job. When you go the extra mile and do the things that you don't want to do and you don't want to do them, that's how you stand out. That's how you grow. And then also, what limiting beliefs do we have in your mind, in your heart, and learning how to overcome those? What are the steps that you need to take? Each limiting belief is different, but when we have limiting beliefs, we can get rid of them by having positive self-talk played. And I highly recommend doing stuff like that. Have a vision board. I have a vision board in my bathroom. I see it 3 or 4 times a day when I go to the bathroom. So there's things that you have to do to encourage yourself to keep going. And that's the biggest thing is just don't quit. I thought about stopping my podcast a few months ago because I hit a plateau of numbers that wasn't growing. And then I got a stupid fortune cookie that said, don't quit. and I was like, well, I'm not saying this is the fortune, but maybe it's you, God. I don't know. And so I decided to make a few more phone calls to try to get other guests on my show. And then I started nailing, I've already had really good guests on my podcast before, but then I got, Kevin Sorbo, who played Hercules in the 90s and the lieutenant governor and these individuals, or at least the lieutenant governor and some other individuals are like, well, hey, we're well connected, so maybe we can get you some more people on the show. And so the expectation is because of building relationships with other people, it's going to provide open doors of opportunity that I didn't have before. So the biggest thing is surround yourself with people who you want to be around and be like. Don't surround yourself with people who will bring you down or are of no value add, even if you love them. There are people that I love in my life that I'm not hanging around because they are not adding to my future. I don't want to be the most stable friend that I have.
I definitely can understand that point. I've had let go of a lot of people. Like I said, an expat or a year ago, let go of people in our lives. From what I'm hearing from you is that don't serve us. And also I have a thing called ego, easing God out, keeping our egos in check. I think you can agree with that point, and also what I'm hearing from you, if I can have some maybe feedback from you on this, is that just putting that one foot in front of the other is a huge thing that we can keep doing no matter the obstacles we run into.
Right.
Looking at, where we're at right now, is there anything you'd like to add to, what you've said this far?
Yeah. If you're going through something in your life and you don't feel like you have someone to talk to, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm really easy to get a hold of. And because of a lot of hurts, pains, and hardships, I feel like there's a lot of things that have, at least from other people that have talked to me, that have given me feedback back on conversations, that it tends to help. So, one of the things that I do is I have a free 15-minute coaching session for people, just a
Mhm.
one-time free 15-minute. And then if we would work well with one another, my coaching sessions are extremely affordable
Mhm.
compared to the coaching sessions that I've had to pay for and sign up for. I had one coach that made it extremely affordable for me once, and it changed my life. And because of that, I wanted to make it affordable for other people, because right now some people are charging $1,000 a month. Good for them. Maybe one day I'll do that. I don't know. But as of right now, it's extremely affordable. And it's on my website, thewholepersonpodcast.com. My
Mhm.
name is Evan Herrman. My phone number is 918-625-7073. So I invite all the love and hate mail that you can send me.
Yeah. I jokingly say, for those who like to give me negative feedback, I feel that they must be feeling awful bad, and I just have to be empathetic towards them, because, if that's the way they have to give out folks, then I just kind of look at it in the way of being empathetic to them, that they must be in a lot of pain themselves. And, from what I'm hearing from you, when people throw stones back at you.
Yeah.
And would you agree with that?
Um, I don't think about it too much, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm sure they're going through stuff. I'm sure a lot of it's conditioning and mental programming that they had from their childhood. I honestly just I don't pay attention. I've dealt enough with that when I was growing up through middle school. I don't need to go back to middle school again.
I agree with you. Yeah. I'll admit I was bullied too. I was bullied because I was quite different. So, if there were three takeaways you could give the audience, from what we've talked about, what would they be?
First, I am who I am because of Jesus Christ. Everything that I've needed, everything that he's provided, I can't imagine doing life without him, because he has been such a crucial part of every step of my life. The other takeaway would be learn how to take extreme ownership in your victories and in your failures, and learn how to become more self aware so that you know yourself and how to make better decisions. And then the last thing is, you know, follow me. If you need help, talk to me, reach out to me through the podcast, the Whole Person Podcast. I'm legitimately here to help people and to grow myself.
I could definitely understand that point. So, well, I'd like to thank you for being on Declares to Life for Life. It's about life podcast. And I thank you. And I'd always like to welcome you back if you have any more you'd like to say or give out. Thank you for coming to Claire's Delight for Life. It's about life. I hope you enjoyed our podcast as much as I did, and I hope you have a great day. I also want to let you know that we are on the platforms of Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, and Pinterest. And I would gladly check you out and check these out, learn about what we're doing and great things that you can learn. And also check out our website, Declares Delight for Life. it's Declutters Delight for Life, DECLUTTERS, Delight, DELIGHT, for FOLIFE.com. I know that was a little bit long to spell out, but what I would also love for you to check out and share this information with others and share them about the podcast, because it has great value, because you can learn about the experience and strength of others, and that experience and strength of others can go within you. And I would also love you to check out our books, Clutter to Declutter, 28 Days to Declutter Your Mind, Declutter Your Mind for Now. And if you think about it, in the next 2 months, we're going to have another book out, The Secrets to Overcoming Depression, Anxiety, and Stress. And I know for a lot of you out there, these are things that you can address. And we have these, and they were done from the heart, from me to you. And over the next couple months, you will see things out also in audio and video with these books. And check it out. I hope these would be of great value, because that's what we want to give you: great value and love, kindness, compassion, and hope and love and truth. Thank you. And I appreciate everything and who you are. And thank you.